What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another special episode here on the Buccos Pod. My name is Nathan. I'm here joined by a special guest, Anthony Murphy. Murph, let us know where they can find you before we can get into this, because you're everywhere.
Stay pretty busy. Well, first, thanks for having me. You can find me, my main site, Bucks on Deck, Substack, cover the Pirates minor league system. Also do some work for DK Pittsburgh Sports, and I'm also the Pirates correspondent for Baseball America.
Okay, awesome. And you know why you're on here. We are actually going to be talking prospects. I've been hinting at wanting to do a full little prospect episode because the team, being honest, it isn't that fun to look at right now. But I will say the minor league system has looked pretty good. And that's why I had to get Murphy on here, because he is the professional when it comes to all this prospect talk. But yesterday we had big news. So the time of this, we're recording this on a Thursday. I'm at work yesterday and I get the notification Bubba Chandler's called up. Now, this is something a lot of Pirates fans have basically been begging for. He's number 2 in the organization because Konnor Griffin just had a surge this year. I felt like that was just awesome to see for him. But also, Bubba Chandler at a time was one of the top 5 prospects this year. He's dropped down to 7th because I just recorded an episode. Literally, everyone in front of him is a shortstop of some way, shape, or form on Pipeline. So Bubba Chandler, according to Pipeline, number 7 in all of baseball, he gets called up. And it makes me wonder, so you're like, okay, is he starting on Friday? The Pirates are not starting him. It looks like they're going to be doing bulk relief. So it looks like if it's tomorrow, which would be supposed if he makes his debut on Friday against the Rockies, I think it's Braxton Ashcraft is listed as a starter, and then Bubba Chandler probably is the bulk guy. It makes me wonder, could they have done Chandler and then Ashcraft that way? Or is there I guess we can get to Ashcraft even later in this episode, because it kind of asks this question. Is Bubba Chandler, is this just him having struggles in AAA? Maybe they're just worried about that in this final month and a half. Or I'll just throw it over to you. So what do you think overall about this situation Chandler's found himself in?
Well, to be honest, I don't think I've ever really been that big of a fan of the if you have one of your top starting prospects, get him up and like starting him out in the bullpen and stuff like that. I could kind of see that, like if you're a team that's like competing and maybe in the playoff hunt, get him in here, get him kind of used to it. Like the thing like the St. Louis Cardinals used to do all the time. They'll get one of the top prospects, they'll slide in the bullpen, and then a year or two down the road, they'll put him back in the rotation. For a team like the Pirates, I don't feel like that really, generally in most cases, makes sense. You're not really competing for anything. Throw him out there, let him start. That's what he's going to be doing. But I think with the struggles that Chandler has kind of had this year, especially lately, I do think that this is probably the better route to go. You could at least get him facing major league pitching. You can and he still has, like, I think his last start, he crossed this 100 innings, and he threw like 120 ish last year, right at 120 last year. So he still has some room to, like, all right, you get him a couple 2-3 innings. And then, if you want like his last outing of the year to be a start, you can still get over that 120 mark. But I think for the issues he's having, this is a probably the best route you can go for him. Get him at least comfortable, because he's going to be one of the guys you want if you're looking to compete or compete better next year. He's going to be one of the key pieces in it, and you don't want him coming up just blindly adjusting on the fly kind of thing if you're trying to win.
Yeah. You bring up the innings. Bubba Chandler currently at 100. His career high was last season, 2024, across AA and AAA. He pitched in, it looks like 100 and a third. Actually, wait 1 second. It is 119 and 2/3, that is. Mm-hmm. So he's already, like you said, about 20 innings away from that. So you think Bubba might at least get one start in the major leagues this season, correct?
I mean, I can see it. I mean, it's going to get to a point to where, like, the team's probably, I mean, they're out of contention right now, but at the end, maybe one of the last home games or something like that, you kind of work it out to where, even if it's only like a 3 or 4 inning start, nothing like he's pitching deep or something like that, get him in and let him feel that routine one time of being like the actual starter, going through the whole process and stuff like that. I feel like that'd probably be the best route. If you're going to go the bullpen thing, like maybe there's a lot of guys that you're going to want to start watching the innings here with Burrows and Ashcraft and even like a Skeens and stuff like that. So like you'll probably be able to work it out to where you can extend the rotation out an extra guy to squeeze him in there one time at the end.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised they weren't just letting him start maybe like 3 innings and maybe go to Ashcraft after, because I feel like they're doing the same thing what they did with Braxton Ashcraft, who is also like a starter throughout the minor leagues. I think he as well had a little bit more injury concerns as well. But you look at what Ashcraft's been doing these last few months, he's been really good out of the bullpen. And these last couple outings, he's actually gotten the ball to start the game. So I'm kind of wondering if this is what they're going to do with Bubba. I'm kind of surprised though they weren't. I thought if the Rockies are coming to town, I know the Rockies had these 2 magical comebacks in Coors Field. I was thinking if there was any lineup you would want a rookie, like not a phenom, but like this guy, a top prospect to go against, it would probably be the Rockies for him to make that major league debut. And I don't want to say I'm surprised they're not doing it that way. This is just kind of surprising the way it's being done, because this is a guy who's the top pitching prospect in the sport according to Pipeline. Yeah. And he's being used out of the bullpen. And I think not just Pirates fans, but I think a lot of fans might be a little bit confused when they saw the whole, oh, he's going to be doing bulk relief instead of actually starting the game, even though whenever he starts the game, he might go 3 or 4 innings max. Because I don't think the Pirates are going to throw him out there already at 100 innings, because you brought up the innings argument. I don't think they were going to throw him out there against the Rockies, hope for 7 strong innings. That was just not going to happen. Paul Skeens didn't even go that long into his big league debut. So I don't know if you have anything else to add about like what we could expect out of Bubba in this, hopefully Friday, if this is actually the plan with him and Ashcraft, or if like there could be, if this is actually going to be a duo that you think they're going to roll with the rest of the season in that order.
I could see a scenario to where like I don't think necessarily it's going to be like Ashcraft and Chandler like every time, but I could see a scenario to where like, let's just say that Chandler, because Friday would be like his usual day in the rotation. Let's say if he was still in Indy, you can, since you're kind of trying to watch Ashcraft's innings, you can max him out at 4 here on Friday, and then have Chandler work 2 or 3 innings behind him, and then like Mike Burrows is another guy you're probably going to want to watch there. So it may not be like a direct piggyback with like Ashcraft and Chandler, but I do imagine that as like the innings keep piling up, you can cut one of the starters' innings by one of their starts by like an inning or 2, and then you could just fill Bubba Chandler in behind him. He's still getting the work in multiple innings. It's major league experience now that he's getting, and you're kind of limiting how much your starters are going as well as the innings keep going up.
Yeah, and before we move on to our next topic, because the next guy we're going to talk about is a big one in the system this year and probably the future of the Pirates in general. Looking at Bubba this season, he started out really good. He was red hot, and then it felt like he hit a wall. And a lot of people were saying it might be just because he's bored in AAA. I personally don't think he's purposely pitching bad just because he's bored. And I feel like there was some things, like people have brought up his whip this year, kind of higher than usual. If you don't know what that is, for anyone watching, walks and hits per inning pitched, he's right now this season at a 1.48. So almost 1.5 hits or walks an inning. So how do you think, it's the highest also of his career? His previous high was in 2023, where it was a 1.44. So slightly higher than that. How do you think that will translate at PNC Park? Like, should people be kind of worried this year or like next year if he's actually in the rotation to start?
Well, I kind of feel like baseball's hard. I think there probably be some struggles that he goes through. I think, we've seen like someone who's like Chase Burns, which I think right now, like most places are either going to call like Chase Burns or Bubba Chandler as like the top pitching prospect in the game. And like, Burns has struck out a lot of people, but he's given up, I think it's like ERAs like in the 5s or 6.
Yeah.
So like, I can probably see a scenario to where like maybe Chandler's stat line looks similar to that. Like he'll probably give up some runs, especially because like the fastball command hasn't been what it was at the beginning of the year or like last year. So I think that's been a lot of his troubles. I know Baseball America came out with an article and kind of broke down. I think I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but they pretty much kind of said to where like he isn't using the fastball at the top of the zone to where it plays better as much as he was last year. So they're thinking maybe that might have something to do with it. But really what it comes down to is if he hits his spot, like that fastball is as unhittable a fastball as there is in baseball. And if he comes up and like he steps up to the challenge and he starts hitting the spot, I mean, like he's going to blow a lot of fastballs by hitters. And if he doesn't hit the spots, we've kind of seen what's happening. So
yeah,
I think it'll be a lot of ups and downs, but every time that you see him pitch, you'll kind of be like, okay, well, as soon as he gets this ironed out, you can clearly see the talent.
yeah. And one more question about Bubba Chandler before we move on. So we all saw Jared Jones had his debut. I'm not expecting that out of Bubba Chandler.
Yeah.
That was just crazy. I'm not expecting Paul Skeens out of Bubba Chandler because no one will ever be another Paul Skeens for a long time, I don't think. Whenever I look at next year's rotation, the main guys, the main pieces seem to just be Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and then it's a lot of young arms. Jared Jones, if healthy, will probably join in like September, I don't know, July, August, September next year, if hopefully the best. Bubba Chandler, do you see him? What is his best role? Like, do you think his peak ceiling value? I know a lot of people say he's a number one starter. I personally think he's a 2 or 3. Like, would you put him ahead of a Mitch Keller in a rotation if he reaches his potential, or would you put him as a 3 behind Mitch Keller?
I feel like if he reaches his peak, there's probably only one starter that's better than him in that rotation, and that would be Paul Skeens. Like I think the way it's kind of subjective how people like look at like, oh, he's like a 1 or a 2 or 3. Like Paul Skeens, he's an ace, and I don't like using that word often because like I feel like it's misused because there's a lot of ace is someone who can do it multiple years in a row kind of thing and be at the top of the game. He's like top, like there's probably only a handful of like true aces out there right now, and Paul Skeens is one of them. Bubba Chandler as like even if like a number 2, which I'd probably say that's where he's at his peak. That's still like a Zach Wheeler type, and I think I've heard that kind of comparison come from some. But so like I mean I think you take like a Zach Wheeler like any day of the week, especially if especially if you still have like Paul Skeens pitching in front of him, kind of thing. So like his peak is definitely like top of the rotation, front line stuff. Like obviously if the control and command doesn't get back to where it was late last season, early in the season, he probably takes a little bit of a hit on that. But I mean, like even as like a middle of the rotation 3, that's still going to be really good. That's still probably like worth like I think it's like 2 or like 3 or 4 like WAR at that point as a 3. So
yeah. It's going to be interesting what next year's rotation looks like. I'm also curious if Bubba will break camp. I hope he does, if they're giving him the call up now. But moving on to another guy that has broken into another league this week, moving up to AA Altoona. He got just promoted. Konnor Griffin goes to Altoona. He's already played 2 games. I'm not even going to look at his stats because it's been 8 at-bats. So, Konnor Griffin raked in low A and high A. And he is only, if I'm not mistaken, 19 years old, just drafted out of high school last year. And speaking of Bubba, he was also drafted out of high school, and he makes the big leagues at age 22 as a pitcher. You would think you have to pitch more innings in the minor leagues. Konnor Griffin already in AA, literally a year after he's drafted. What do you think about this? Because Konnor Griffin's also, not to mention now, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. I feel like at the start of this, at MLB Pipeline put him in the 30s. Then he started soaring up to like the upper teens, and now he's number 1 all of a sudden out of beating like guys like Jesus Mate, Kevin McGonigal, Leo DeVries, Sebastian Walcott, and JJ Weatherholt. Those are all the shortstops behind him and ahead of Bubba. So what do we think about Konnor Griffin right now?
I mean, it's I always try to haste expectations or and stuff like that. So like I saw him like a month into the season. I saw him a little bit in spring training. I was at the spring breakout game, and I went down the first week of May, and like this is like right after he turned 19, and like just watching just everything about him is it just blows you off the charts. It's plus speed. The guy just like you feel like he could run out just about any routine grounder and beat it out for an infield hit. The power is legit for an 18, 19-year-old. There's still like he still has to elevate the ball a little bit more to like really tap into it. But like, I mean, I think you say that about every teenager at this point. I mean, he's at 60 steals. It's just incredible, just how fast that like he's just developed and it's I feel like it's easily in my like it's still a short time that I've done this, easily like the best prospect I've seen like in person, and like he's built like he should be playing tight end or something like that, not playing shortstop, and he can still run 70, 80 grade speed. It's just incredible what he can do out on a baseball field.
I feel like Connor Griffin, like I completely agree. I feel like he's probably the best all-around hitting prospect, because not overall Paul Skeens, but overall hitting prospect in the Pirates org that they have had in a very long time that has had this much traction. Like the last guy I can think about at the top of my head that I was like really hyped for when I was younger was honestly Gregory Polanco. And these are two different players, because Gregory Polanco had a lot of hype too, and then kind of slowly fizzled out of like a couple years in the big leagues. Connor Griffin, though, out of high school is just impressive. Like you bring up the 60 stolen bases. Pipeline has his totals at a 55 hit, 60 power, 70 runs, 70 arms, 60 field, overall 65. Now, looking at the fielding too, he's listed as a shortstop outfielder. Where do you think he ends up? Is it shortstop? I know he's been playing a lot more shortstop lately. Is that the plan, you think?
I would think so. I think, and like I think there's always like this thing when you hear about like the shortstop, and then like there's another position. There's always the mindset of like, well, maybe he can't play the position. And I think like after watching them, it's like I don't think the question was ever like, can he play shortstop? It's always been like, where are you gonna get the most value out of him? Because like he's shown that he can be an above average to potentially plus defensive shortstop. But then also too, when you think about his the 70, 80 grade speed, the 70 arm, you know, with his size and everything like that, like this guy could be probably a legit like gold glove center fielder as well. Like he's just overall just like one of the most talented players that like I think we've seen definitely throughout the system and come through this system. And long term, I think the goal right now is just have him play shortstop, and then like I guess you would think that if someone else comes along, that maybe you can get more value out of putting someone else at short and then putting him out in center. Maybe then you look at it, but I kind of feel like until then that it's just kind of Griffin's is the shortstop until otherwise.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at his like overall another tool. It's interesting. Whenever he got called up to Greensboro, a lot of people were expecting that's the place his power number is going to go up. He had less home runs in Greensboro than Bradenton, and that makes me wonder how he's going to do with Altoona, because we always say as Pirates fans, like Greensboro is a boombox, and then you go to Altoona and you see like Termarr Johnson still in Altoona right now. And I'm not, there's nothing against Termarr Johnson, but it's clearly the bat hasn't played as well in Altoona than it has in the past. So I'm wondering, I don't fear that about Connor Griffin, but something about his game that I feel like he has improved a bit. So I'm looking at his walks to strikeout ratio. I remember in Bradenton, that was a big iffy like thing, like, can he improve? So 15 walks to 53 Ks in Bradenton. Then he goes to Greensboro, 28 walks to 46 Ks, which I would say is a pretty good improvement. But in very short sample size, but in 8 ABs in Altoona so far, he has no walks and 5 Ks. So I don't know if it's just like the adjustment period. I mean, he's going to probably be, I would assume, Altoona the rest of the year. I don't think he's going to be in AAA. I mean, there's a small chance I think he breaks spring training in AAA. That would be really cool. But that would be like he has to, like, you would think, just go above and beyond in spring training next year, because last season spring training, well, this season spring training, that is, he had some big moments in spring training. So I'm wondering, like, do you think they're going to take that more so into account than per se his like 2 week stint, 2 to 3 weeks in AA now? Will they look at this more so than spring training next year, or is it going to be like another brief spring training thing for Connor Griffin and then just ship him to Indianapolis or back to Altoona?
I think some of how how it plays out the rest of the year will factor into it. I think the majority of it will just kind of be, and probably not even like how he does in like the spring training games, but I think more so like just how his camp goes overall will probably determine like where he ends up. He's the type of guy that like with like the momentum that he's gaining, Like he's like probably on like the short list that maybe you kind of approach about maybe going to the Arizona Fall League. And if he goes to like the Fall League and then does really well there, then maybe that gives you just even more of a reason to start him at AAA. I mean, like I didn't like talking about it too much, but at this point, like if he adjusts and like he's done it at every level, and I think the strikeout issues is something that kind of feels like it started out at each level, and then he slowly kind of learned to adjust to it. And it's kind of like usually the same thing. Like it's like the breaking pitches like low and away or just on the outer half of the plate. But if he makes pretty good adjustments with that, maybe he goes to the fall, plays for a little bit there, does well. I don't see. There's definitely a scenario where he starts in AAA, I believe, next year.
Yeah, and then final question to ask about Konnor Griffin. I brought up the boombox in Greensboro compared to Altoona. Do you think his power numbers are going to take a dip because of Altoona?
I think naturally, I think that the power numbers will always take a little bit of dip just because it is a more spacious place there. But I think with Konnor, like I mentioned like before, I think it's more of a matter of him just figuring out how to elevate the ball properly. And once that kind of comes, you'll see the power there. I don't think you'll necessarily need to read too much into the final home run numbers as far as where the power is. And I think it'll be important to remember too that he'll be 19 the rest of the year with it too. Yeah. And it's 19-year-old in AA. So like maybe if the power isn't there, that's fine. Like I'm sure it's not publicly available data, but even if he's not hitting home runs, like I'm sure the exit velocity numbers are still gonna be like, okay, well, all he has to do is just lift the ball a little bit and he'll get there. So,
yeah. And like you said, he's only 19. And it's funny, he broke the curve record for youngest guy to play because it was McCutchen. And now McCutchen's in the major leagues nearing retirement. And then you got Konnor Griffin coming up at the exact same time. So pretty cool stuff. Hoping for the best for Konnor Griffin. I'm going to try to see him this weekend, hopefully. But moving on to another guy. I know you're pretty high on him, hearing on North Shore 9 all the time. Edward Florentino has had a surge this season. Yeah. He's still in low A Bradenton. I'm wondering if and when they'll put him in Greensboro, because I feel like he will rake in Greensboro if he keeps hitting like he has been in Bradenton. Right now, he is only 18. His ETA is way different than Konnor Griffin's because Pipeline has him at 2027. I would maybe for Griffin 2026 at this point. But Edward Florentino 2029. They think it's going to take him a while, which I could totally see. So Edward Florentino this season has a 974 OPS across two different teams, rookie ball and low A. What has clicked for him? Like, I feel like this has come out of nowhere. He wasn't on my radar until early this season. So I don't know if you can explain more about the surge he has had.
So he was the guy that had a very good year in the Dominican last year. His first year in pro ball. I think sometimes it's hard to gauge like the Dominican numbers just because you don't know the competition they play, varies from game to game. If he's a little bit more on the advanced side, which obviously he's going to do better. But he walked more than he struck out. I think that's kind of like just the biggest key for him. Like he has his plate awareness and his strike zone awareness is just far beyond like his age, which has just allowed him to really pick and choose. And when he gets a pitch that he knows he can hit, he just turns on it just as well as like anyone that I've seen down there in the lower levels. And the power, like he has the hard hit rate's very good. Like the 90th percentile EV is pretty good. He has the frame to add some more muscle. I think right now probably you're maybe looking at someone, if the power goes in the right way, probably like a 20 to 25 home run hitter when it's all said and done. But just really, I think it's like the strike zone judgment and like his plate awareness that's really just kind of allowed him to hit the ground running so far at such a young age.
Yeah, and you bring up his power numbers too. Right now in Bradenton, so he's across two different teams this year. He has 16 home runs. Right now in Bradenton, 10 home runs. He has the 28 stolen bases. So looking at this, if he were to do this across the whole season, he could possibly be a 20-20 guy. 20 home runs, 20 steals. Also has a 915 OPS and a 268 average, 390 OBP, a 525 slugging, and this is only in 49 games.
Mhm.
Is Edward Florentino a guy that they're going to keep, you think, in Bradenton the rest of this season? Does he get a taste in Greensboro? Because like I said, he's only 18 years old. I feel like maybe that's a little bit too early for a Greensboro call up. I mean,
Mhm.
if he's playing like this, maybe he just warrants it. Or is this a guy that they might even keep in Bradenton a little bit next season? Or do they start him in Greensboro after spring training?
I think I think I think he probably sticks in Bradenton the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He's like you said, he's 18. Like he's still facing guys three plus years older than him, even down in low A with Bradenton. I mean, he's doing well with it. I mean, and you could argue there's probably still some stuff that you kind of want to see him work on by the end of the year. His platoon splits are pretty wide. He hasn't hit lefties too well this year. Um, I would like to see, this is something that I've like personally said. I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive at the plate. It feels like sometimes, so like, I mean, I guess that's kind of like the catch 22 with having that kind of plate awareness and strike zones there. Because I do feel like sometimes he does fall behind the count a little bit as he's trying to pick and choose what pitches he wants to go after. And I think like at this point, if he's falling behind that much against more advanced hitters like in high A and down the road, they'll be able to take advantage of that a little bit more than maybe the low A pitchers do. Like I've seen plenty of times to where like a low A pitcher gets up 0-2 and then they just can't find the strike zone for the next 4 pitches because they're just trying to find that perfect pitch. And, someone like Florentino isn't going to swing at anything that's not anywhere near the zone. So, but I think he sticks in Bradenton the rest of the year and then probably just starts the year in Greensboro next year.
Moving on to our next topic, let's talk about Stafura and Rafael Flores, who the Pirates. These were the two bigger name prospects the Pirates traded for at this trade deadline. It was I feel like everyone thought it was a very frustrating trade deadline. I feel like these two prospects, especially Rafael Flores, I think it's fair to say the Pirates have given a lot of unrealistic expectations to and a lot of unnecessary pressure to. Because I think a lot of fans that are frustrated are banking on Flores being a big name because they were banking on a major league bat. They weren't going to get that, but that's another episode. Stafura, the same thing. Actually, not as much, I would say, but I feel like Flores is the guy because he was traded for probably the better impact player, being David Bednar. Let's start with Stafura, though. Right now at the Pirates' 7th overall prospect, he was around that range with the Cincinnati Reds on pipeline. His transition to the Pirates organization has felt a little bleh so far. Is it Daytona for the Reds?
Yeah.
Okay, so with them, he was hitting 261 in 89 games and 802 OPS. He played 4 games in Bradenton. He had a 732 OPS. In Greensboro, though, 12 games, he's at a 548 and a 191 average. You would also think like that's the stadium where he is like, let's turn on the Jets, let's go. He has 1 homer. He's not really a power guy, but like still like the OPS isn't that exciting right now. I mean, it is only 12 games. With Stafura, I feel like his calling card might just be his running like speed tool right now at a 65. I feel like at his best, he might just be a pure contact machine, if anything. What's your thoughts on Stafura's like slow start? Is it something to worry about? I mean, he is also, if I'm not mistaken, let me see here. He's only 20 years old. He's 1 year older than Konnor Griffin. But like, what is there worries about Stafura already, or is this just let's just get used to a new organization?
I think part of it's like new organization. Part of it too is like it's a new level, and like he's at high A at 20 years old, which is fairly young. I mean, obviously, like I think some ideas on like age level compared to what level they're at gets thrown off a little bit because the Pirates have Termarr Johnson and Konnor Griffin at Double-A, and they both got there pretty young. I think there's that thing where Termarr Johnson still hasn't faced a pitcher younger than him yet, so that gets thrown off a little bit. But 20 years old at high A is still pretty young. He's adjusting, and I think too, like sometimes like it's almost good to see. Obviously, we'll want to see him hit better, but it's almost good to see hitters not fall into the Greensboro trap and kind of stick to their game. So if it's something we saw with like someone like Mitch Deb early last year, he kind of gave up some of his contact ability to swing for a little bit more power. He did hit some added home runs, but then you saw the strikeouts and other stuff like that crept out. crept up. So with Stafura, home runs are never going to be his game. That's not what he's not going to be a big power hitter. So like if he can start hitting better, it doesn't have to be over the fence kind of thing. He's going to be a guy who's going to attack the gaps, play good defense, steal bases, that kind of stuff. Give him about like a week or two, I guess, like of an adjustment to a new kind of level. Get him facing some of the hitters there, and probably see what kind of adjustments he can make at that point.
Yeah, I agree with the whole don't let Greensboro change your game also, because I'm looking at Mitch Jebb right now. He had the 6 home runs in Greensboro last season, and so far in Altoona, he has 0. Yeah. 0 home runs. So he's yet to hit his first AA home run, and his OPS has dropped a little bit. And I feel like that's the player Mitch Jebb is going to be. But I don't want to spend too much time on Mitch Jebb of all the prospects in the world. But yeah, Stafura, I'm not really worried about. I feel like it could also, like you think, like maybe hopefully he's not playing into the Greensboro. Like, I want to hit home runs now because I know this is a ballpark to do it. Because I feel like a lot of prospects should be preparing for, like, they know, I think AA is where it gets real. And Altoona, if they don't already know, Altoona is, I like to say, where hitters go to die, not figurative, not literally, but figuratively. Yeah. But it's like, that's where your power numbers are sadly probably going to dip. And I don't want a player or a prospect to waste a lot of their power or a lot of their career home runs in the minor leagues in Greensboro. I'd rather see it in Altoona and prove that the power is legit, or even just Indianapolis, because it's like, oh, they're knocking on the door. Let's get this going. So Stafura, I'm not really worried about. I agree. It's also probably just an adjustment. And then the other guy who's also having an adjustment period that's kind of been very slow as well is probably the bigger name they traded for at this trade deadline, Rafael Flores. He is right now the 8th best Pirates prospect. I think that's where he was in the Yankees org as well on Pipeline when they traded for him. And the whole argument with trading Bednar was they said they wanted a top 5 prospect. And then they went to the Yankees org and didn't get one, and they settled for a package of 2 catchers, including Edwin Perez, who is the 17th best one in the Pirates org right now. But Rafael Flores, so far with the Indianapolis Indians, so he was in Scranton Wilkes-Barre with the Rail Riders, with the Yankees org. He had a 2.11 average across 10 games, so he just got called up to AAA. It wasn't really a great start. So far in Indianapolis in 14 games, slightly longer sample size, he's at a 212 average and a 641 OPS compared to the 677 he had in Wilkes-Barre. His home runs, he has 1 in each area. I mean, is this also, you think, just an adjustment period? I know a lot of people are saying this is just who Rafael Flores will probably be. I've seen a lot of people say his swing and miss is an issue. He's chasing and whiffing on a lot of pitches, and that's kind of like his prospect savant pages. There's a lot of blue on those. Yeah. But whenever he can hit a baseball, he can hit a baseball. But it's like, is this a thing that is this worrisome? You think that this could be a trend? Because I feel like a lot of people are thinking they might see Flores as a guy maybe to, I don't know, pressure Henry Davis into becoming a better baseball player. That's how I'm kind of looking at this, because you traded for 2 catchers, two organizational Yankees catchers. And that's something the Yankees have actually done pretty well, develop catchers in the minor leagues. And you bring up Rafael Flores, who is one of their top catching prospects in your organization. Could this just be the move that like kind of makes Henry Davis take that next step? Or do they actually, you think, see Flores as a catcher that can compete for that job, or even first base, because he's listed as catcher and first base?
Yeah, I think in an ideal scenario, maybe this is an ideal scenario for some people to hear, just based off of who the Pirates traded to get him. But like, I feel like there's a scenario that you work out to where Flores is like technically the backup at catcher and first base. You know, maybe he platoons with Horwitz as like on the other side, give Horwitz off against lefties. And then like you kind of split time behind the plate with Henry Davis. It's technically a backup, but like when you're playing that much, like you're going to get plenty of games. And obviously it's going to be the bat that you hope that kind of carries him. So getting him in the lineup more as opposed to kind of limiting him playing catcher, I think probably maximizes his value. I do think there probably should be maybe a little worries with him, because there's like an issue that's going back to like when he first with the Yankees, when he first got called up to AAA. But I think overall it's still mostly a small, on the smaller side of a sample to make any full judgments on it as far as his AAA play. You'd definitely like to see him make a little bit more contact, but it does seem like there might be some like swing and miss to his game in general. So I guess it's just going to be a matter of how much contact he's making, because like you said, when he does make contact, he does hit the ball pretty hard. So
yeah, and before we move on, so Stafura is ranked as the 7th best guy in pipeline. Flores is the 8th, so they slot in as 2 top 10 guys. If I were to ask you right now, and this is going to put you on the spot, if you had to choose either one of those two, who has the bigger impact on this organization? Not immediate. So like Flores might be here first, but maybe Stafura has the best impact on this org. Who do you think has the biggest impact in the major leagues, if any? If you had to choose.
So that's tricky, just because like going into the draft the previous year, I was a pretty big Sammy Stafura fan on there. I liked his overall game. So I think naturally I've seen more of Stafura, so I kind of have more comfortable like long term what he might project. I think if you look at like best case scenarios on both of them, they're probably more. I wouldn't say that they're probably like everyday guys. They're probably at best, like I said with Flores. Flores is probably at best like a platoon ish kind of guy that you kind of mix and match with other people. And Stafura probably at best is more probably like a bench utility guy. You know, he's got a strong arm. Should be able to play all three, or second, short, and third, with that speed and stuff like that. So I guess it just kind of feel like long term, which do you feel like you could get more value out of? I would probably say I could see a scenario where Flores probably works out better, just because he's a little bit safer right now. Like just because he's had more success at the upper levels. But I think if Stafura kind of works out to how he can, I feel like there's a chance they, like war wise, they probably bring about the same value.
I feel like with this question mark is at catcher as well right now, with Henry Davis's struggles and Andy Rodriguez injury, Joey Bart, is he even going to be on the team next year, or that type of thing. This could be an opportunity for Flores to try to take those next steps at the best possibility he can. Moving on though to another guy, and as we're near the end of this episode, Termarr Johnson now ranks 6th on pipeline, just ahead of Stafura and Flores. Now, Termarr was known as the best high school prep bat in the 2022 draft, 4th overall draft pick. And it's crazy to say, at the North Shore 9 tailgate, I talked to Noah Hiles for a little bit, and I asked this question. Do you think it's crazy? This is before, I think it was in May this happened. I was like, is it crazy to say Konnor Griffin might be able to pass Termarr Johnson? Because Konnor Griffin, as well, best high school prep bat in his class, and he was picked 9th overall. And he was like, no, that's not crazy at all. And now we're here. They're both in the same lineup. And Termarr's been kind of, I don't want to say disappointing, because he hasn't been disappointing, to say the least. Like, he still has right now a 740 OPS, which it's solid. That's kind of where you want to see it be. What has Termarr done to not be able to take these next steps? And why is he falling? Can you explain to people listening why he's falling down a lot of these prospect lists? Because he's not a top 100 prospect on Pipeline anymore. And I think that has a lot of people nervous, because Termarr seems to be a really fan favorite type of prospect. You've said the thing, like, he's never faced a pitcher younger than him yet, which is just a crazy stat, because right now Konnor Griffin's probably going to be the same way for a while too, especially in Altoona. And Termarr is currently 21 years old. I feel like the size might also worry some people too. He's only 5'8", 190. So he's a smaller guy, second baseman, shortstop. You look at what they have now. Nick Gonzalez has seemed to be taking these next steps in the big leagues. So what is going on with Termarr? Why has his value been, I don't want to say tanking, but like dipping slightly?
Well, like I guess for like when you're talking about like prospect lists, that's probably like an easier question to answer. When you look at like prospect lists, it's a lot of it's like value, and they're always going to favor the guy who can play like shortstop and stuff like that. And when you look at Tamar's overall profile, yes, he's played shortstop in the past, but like he's really going to be like a second baseman. And then like you question if he's going to be an everyday second baseman, because the left-handed thing, how the platoon splits look. I believe they look better this year. So that was at least encouraging. But I think the guy who is only he may not provide like the most power, and then he's gonna be limited to second base, And I think I've talked to some people who even kind of question that, like second base in general for him. That's why you're going to see something like that, someone like Termarr drop on like prospect lists and stuff like that, because with there are the guys who have even a shot to play shortstop are going to be favored over someone like a second base only guy, and then a second base maybe only guy. So that would be the big reason why he slipped. Obviously, he hasn't, like, the walks is there. He shows incredible plate discipline and stuff like that. So he still has that working for him. The biggest thing for me watching him is just consistency. I feel like he's not, and I feel like the unfortunate thing is I feel like we've been saying this for like the last year plus for him. It feels like he's like right there on the cusp of it. It's just he can never take that final step forward in his development, because it's he makes solid contact. He could use all the field, hit the ball to every field, and then just sometimes it's just swing and miss in the zone. And I think that's the biggest thing. He doesn't chase, but he does have some issues with swing and miss inside the zone, and that's, I feel like that's something that generally you should be able to work at and kind of iron through. He just hasn't been able to do that yet.
Yeah, right now Pipeline has his ETA as next season, 2026. Currently in AA. Is there a chance he's called up to AAA per se these final few weeks to make some adjustments? I think Altoona just called up Ciani. They sent Ciani to AAA. I did see that today. Do you think Termarr could follow him and go to AAA just to end this season per se? Maybe, I don't want to say like Nick York's called up to the major leagues as an example. Could Termarr take that spot and get some like a cup of coffee to say in AAA and then maybe start next season in AAA? Or do you think this could be like the Edward Florentino thing we just talked about earlier, where he finishes in AA and maybe just starts next year as well in Altoona or even just in Indianapolis? So what do you think his trajectory is, at least for these final few weeks?
So like it'll be interesting to kind of see, because I believe once the AA regular season's over, by the time that's over and done with, I think there's about like 2 weeks left of AAA season. So I could see a scenario to where, like, once the AA season is over, maybe you send him up there, just if anything, just to get him more at bats. Maybe not okay, well, good job, like, you've earned it, but like let's get him a couple extra plate appearances to face more pitching, face some better pitching. But then also the wrench that kind of gets thrown in that is Altoona's kind of in the mix right now for a playoff spot. And so if they make the playoffs, I see a scenario to where he just stays there the rest of the year, plays in the playoffs. And then if the AAA season's done as well, then the season's just kind of done. But I know because he's a top 5 pick, people are kind of have like a certain expectations with his numbers and stuff like that. But I feel like regardless, he probably starts the year in AAA, unless things like go like really badly the rest of the year. And but it does feel like he's starting to pick it up a little bit. I know he has a nice little hitting streak going, quite a few multi-hit games mixed in there with it too. So I think it's be kind of thing to see how he finishes.
Yeah, I'll say like his overall slash line right now in Altoona, for like we bring up like Konnor, Griffin, Florentino, for example, these guys that will be in Altoona in a couple years, and now Griffin now in Altoona. The worry is the power going down. Like his slash line's 267, 347 OBP, a 393 slugging, and a 740 OPS across 97 games. I think that's pretty good for Altoona numbers. And like I said, he has 9 home runs, drove in 31 RBIs. I think that's pretty common. 96 hits. I don't think that's that bad. He's at 12 doubles, 3 triples. I mean, he's driving the ball just a tad bit, that you would like to see a little bit higher slugging than he had across 2 teams last year in Greensboro and Altoona. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Termarr. I think a lot of Pirates fans just are, and per se, because he was a top 5 pick, and he was also known as that top high school prep bat as well. And you can't compare him to Konnor, Griffin, but they were both the top high school prep bats. And the one who was just drafted last year is younger than him by about 2 years. And he's probably looking like he might pass him up, which would be, that's nothing on Termarr, but that just also shows Konnor Griffin's just this beast that the Pirates have gotten lucky to get. And when we were talking Konnor Griffin, like I was thinking, like a major league comp I've seen a lot of people say is Bobby Witt Jr. He has some pop, he can run, and he can hit. He can do it all. So that would be awesome. Before we go, I want to bring up like other standouts. So I don't know if you each want to give a couple names, or I'll just ask you what your thoughts are on these guys. I know we didn't talk about Hunter Barco at all. He's a guy that's been hinted at. Could he come up this year? Is he just next year? He's had some injury scares. He can also throw the ball really fast. Overall thoughts on Barco?
He had a little bit of a slip with the control for a couple starts and all that, but it's starting to look like he's starting to get that going. I love his stuff. The fastball plays really well up in the zone, and then like the slider and splitter kind of mix really well with the fastball there. I think he has a chance to. I mean, like he's not gonna. I don't think he has the same upside as someone like Bubba Chandler and stuff like that, but like I think he could be a really solid like back of the rotation guy for the Pirates.
And then another guy, Thomas Harrington's taken a little bit of a dip as well. Like we saw him get a chance in the major leagues, only pitched 3 games, had a 15.58 ERA. Wasn't that good. Pitched some games out of the bullpen. His best game, I would say, was the piggyback with Carmen Majinski. If you remember, I think a lot of people, that's the one he'll be remembered by this year.
Yeah.
But right now in Indianapolis, a 5.40 ERA. It hasn't been a good year. Is this just a down year for Harrington, or is this kind of like what we could expect out of him?
I think the thing that worries me with a little bit there is like obviously there's I haven't got any like official confirmation with this or anything like that, but I do feel like he was throwing harder last year or the year before, I guess. And last year when he had that shoulder injury and came back from that shoulder injury, just something with the velocity hasn't been right since then. Something with the shape of his fastball hasn't looked quite like it was before. And then, like, also, I think the main thing that's killed him this year has been his control. It's, like he was known for like his control and command. I think he got like a 70 grade on Baseball America for his control. And it just hasn't been that. And if you're only going to throw 90, 91 miles an hour and not have great shape on it, and then not located as well, that's just bad recipe after bad recipe for stuff to happen.
So with those 2 pitchers, I'll ask you 2 hitters really, really quick before we end. This first guy we'll probably talk a couple more minutes on. Esmerlin Valdez was a guy that was raking in Greensboro. Then he goes to Altoona, and like we bring up the numbers dip in Altoona, and his power in Greensboro was awesome. 20 home runs. Right now he's sitting at 2 in Altoona in 32 games. He had in 72 games in Greensboro, he had 20. So that could also be the Greensboro Grasshoppers stadium effect. But then I'm looking at his Altoona numbers compared to Greensboro. I mean, he did also have an injury scare, got in the futures game as well, which was really cool for Valdez. He kind of became this quick fan favorite prospect, which was awesome. He's always on social media leaving thumbs up comments. But currently at a 222, 333, 333, and a 666 OPS. Is this just the Altoona thing? Because this is across a bigger sample size, 32 games. I'm assuming he'll be in Altoona probably a lot next year as well. But is this something where they're just hoping he adjusts very quick? Because let me check. He is right now 21 years old. He's still a little still around the Termarr Johnson age. Is this a guy that you think could be something in the major leagues? Maybe like a DH type. He's an outfield first baseman. Or is this kind of a let's try not to get our hopes up too high type of thing? And maybe it was just the Greensboro Grasshoppers effect, which I hope it wasn't. But
well, I will say the like in some cases, yes. When was it a couple years ago? Shang-Chi Chang hit like 8 or 9 home runs or something like that in Greensboro. That's obviously like the Greensboro effect. Someone like Valdez hitting 20 home runs I would say is less that, just because one, like if you watch a lot of the home runs, they weren't cheapies. Like he got all of them, and then also too, the year before last year he led the Florida State League at 20 years old in home runs. So like the power, the power is legit. Like he hit like the exit velocity numbers, everything like that. It all plays to have him having plus power. The issue last year was he struck out over 30% of the time. He did a very good job of cutting that back while in Greensboro. And I think I've argued quite a bit that, like, yes, get excited about the home runs, but, like, it was never about him hitting for power in Greensboro because we knew he was going to do that. It was monitoring how much swing and miss there was. And I know he cut back on the strikeouts. And then, like, if you look a little bit deeper at his Altoona numbers, still smaller than what he's done in Greensboro. his swing and strike rate and his contact rate have both actually improved in Altoona compared to where it was in Greensboro. So he's facing better pitching and actually swinging and missing less, which is encouraging. And I think if he could maintain that over as he gets more comfortable, we should start to see him hit a little bit more than he has been currently. And I think he has gone on some stretches here to where he's putting together, like, it doesn't always translate to something on the box score that you're going to want to see, but he has had plenty of productive at bats here lately for it, which has been an encouraging sign.
Yeah. And then finally, a guy that I've been seeing going, like, people have been posting clips of him these last couple weeks, like crazy on Twitter and Instagram. Tony Blanco Jr. He's the 30th ranked Pirates prospect. He's finally made it to high A. He's been in low A, that is. He's been in rookie ball all of his career. And his thing has been these StatCast numbers. Like, he seems to be like that StatCast darling type of player, which is awesome. Like, I love the exit viewer. Like, he's hitting these bombs. Like, he has 6 of them already in 18 games and 70 ABs. Could Tony Blanco Jr. be a name, or is this just something that might fizzle out, you think?
I think he's someone that, for right now, probably is just best to enjoy the highlight reels.
Yeah.
Just because the swing and miss, it's like there's a lot of swing and miss there. And it's his entire profile is bent on power. Like he's probably it's probably gonna be like a 20-30 grade hit tool. Like, he doesn't run well at all. He has only played 1 game in the field this year. Outside of that, it's been all DH. So, like, it's like an 80 grade power, but then like 20 to 30 on like everything else. So, like, his entire profile is bent on him being able to hit home runs down the road. And you got to feel at some point he's going to get to the point to where the pitching's advanced enough to where he might hit a wall. His swing is better than I would have thought of someone with that kind of profile. Like, he squares up and times up breaking pitches a lot better than I thought he would. Still whiffs at quite a bit of them, but I don't know, maybe there's some room there. And with the power, you obviously let it play out as long as possible. But I have a hard time. I would have a hard time putting him in like my own personal top 30 probably at this point, even with the power numbers that I've seen.
Yeah, it's going to be curious what he does, even if he gets to Greensboro, hopefully at some point. And I know I said that's the final question, but I've thought of this just for fun. Yeah. I know they have the Bridge League right now. Like, that's where a lot of these draft pick goes. But we saw like guys like Easton Carmichael, Jared Jones skip that. What's going on with Seth Hernandez and your guy Murph Gray? Are we going to see them at all? Like, I'm surprised Murph Gray hasn't made an appearance because I'm a big Murph Gray guy as well. Yeah. Not just because of the name. I just think he could be a decent ball player. As Jim says, a pretty good ball player. So where do they go? I would assume Gray's going to be up higher than Seth Hernandez to start in the minor leagues. But when could we see these two guys?
Well, I wouldn't expect Seth Hernandez at any point this year. I don't even think he threw in the Bridge League, or else we probably would have heard something about it. In high school arm, they're probably a couple months past where their season ended, so there's no sense in kind of like ramping him back up just to get maybe a couple innings here and there. But he's a guy that'll probably start in Bradenton next year. For Murph Gray, I mean, from what I've read, I think Alex Stump had an article and he talked to him, and it sounded like he was hitting. It sounded like he was like going through stuff down there at the complex. So I'm a little, as far as I know, he didn't play in any of the Bridge League games. Like I didn't have a chance. I haven't talked to anyone who has seen him play in any. So I guess there's still a chance he plays, but like the further we get along, I would probably assume that it might not be till next year that we see him.
Okay. Well, thank you as always, Murph, for coming on. If you want to let everyone know again where we can find you, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Subscribe, Bucks on Deck Substack. Do like daily updates on the Pirate system. Also find my some of my work on DK Pittsburgh Sports and Baseball America, which I should be having an article on Edward Florentino coming out at some point this month.
Awesome. I'm excited to read that one, especially because I'm a big Edward Florentino guy now. He's completely won me over. But thank you all for watching. Make sure to comment your thoughts down below. I'll put the tags down there as well, where you can find each portion of this episode. We went a little longer than what we said we were going to do. So thank you, Murphy, for staying on this long. Make sure to subscribe down below, and I'll see you next time.